the show, everyone can see and hear you on the bottom of my screen. So
yep, everyone can hear you. Hello. Thank you to everyone who is joining this webinar from Las Musas. This webinar is called Paths to Publication. And so the four of us, we will introduce ourselves in just a minute, are going to... Sorry. We will be closing that out. That's embarrassing. Okay. So we'll introduce ourselves and we will be talking about our journeys to publishing our debut books. We are all debut authors. So let's start with Rebecca.
Okay. Hi, everyone. So I'm Rebecca Belcárcel, and my book is The Other Half of Happy by Chronicle Books. And it stars a 12-year-old who is bicultural. So she's half Guatemalan and half American. And I would say that she does not speak Spanish, does not want to go to Guatemala, and is very upset that she's named after Don Quixote, who is a Spanish literary figure. Totally embarrassing. But we'll see if she is truly happy being half, which no, she's not. And my next book will come out in spring of 22. So I'm excited. How about
Do you want to
Loriel?
tag the next person?
All right. So my name's Loriel Ryon, and I wrote Into the Tall, Tall Grass. It's hardcover and now available in paperback. Sorry, it's a little bright right there.
Yay.
It features 12-year-old Yolanda, and everyone in her family has a magical trait except for her. And her grandmother, she has a lot of things going on in her life, but basically her grandmother is, in this mysterious, unexplained coma, and she's just desperate for her to wake up. And then one day, this mysterious grass grows up in the desert behind their home, and the grandmother wakes up and says, "Yolanda, I need you to take me to this pecan tree on our land to save my life." And so Yolanda and her ex-best friend and her rival sister and a boy who has a crush on her and this naughty little dog that they have embark on this journey through the tall grass to try to save her grandmother. And that's it. Vanessa?
Yay. Oh. Hi, I'm Vanessa Torres, and I wrote The Turning Point. It's young adult. Comes out in spring of 2022 with Penguin Random House Knop. And it follows Rosa Dominguez, a ballet dancer in 1980s Minneapolis, who is navigating complex family expectations, a new love, and her own aspirations to dance for the Purple One himself, Prince, who happens to be rehearsing for Purple Rain in the studio above. And I don't have a fancy book to hold up for you because I don't have it in my hands yet, but that's the kind of the stage that And Anika.
My name is Anika Fajardo, and I am the author of What If a Fish? It came out in August of 2020 from Simon & Schuster, Books for Young Readers. And it is the story of 11-year-old Eddie Aguado, who lives in Minneapolis. And he is half Colombian. His Colombian dad died when he was young. And so he's kind of grappling with his identity. And he's got a single mom. He's has a much older half brother who lives in Colombia. And he finds out about a fishing contest that he finds out that his dad won when he was young, when he was little. And so he's determined to enter and win this fishing contest to be just like his dad, but he doesn't know how to fish and he doesn't have fishing tackle. He doesn't know what he's doing. So he and a new girl are going to try to win this contest and learn everything. And then he's invited to go to Colombia to stay with his brother and his brother's grandmother, who is dying of cancer. And so he gets to experience his other part of himself and do a little fishing there. So it's about identity, it's about grief, and about family and figuring out where you belong. So put these all on your lists if you haven't read them yet. So we wanted to talk about our paths to publication because everyone has, there's no just one right way to get from your idea to your published book. So We're going to start with talking about how we landed our agents. There's always lots of questions about how to get an agent. And so hopefully this will give you some ideas and also just kind of be some stories about how agents and authors meet up with each other. Does somebody want to jump in?
Yeah, well, okay, well, sure. I queried a manuscript before this one that sold in like 2017 or so. I joined a writers group because I didn't know what I was doing and brought my pages there, and they really helped me through like formatting and just storytelling in general. And I queried that. I cast a really wide net. I did like I just like spit out like 20 queries all at the same time and kind of lost track of who had what, because I was so new at it and everything, and got some good feedback as well as about 10 full manuscript requests, which was great. And but nobody signed me. It was too long. The story needed some work, and the agents at that time didn't have the time to like hold my hand through all of that. And I really clung to that manuscript thinking that it was going to be the one, the book. And it ended up not being the one. And I started writing this book, The Turning Point. And by then I knew what I was doing, and I joined Query Tracker, which I highly recommend if you're in the querying stage, because that helps keep track of everything for you. You just input who you've queried and what stage it is, whether they've requested a full, a partial, whether they, because sometimes you do forget if you don't keep all your emails, you forget who you've queried, which you don't want to query the same person twice if they've already rejected you. So that was a big help. It really helped organize me. And then I only put out about 5 queries at a time. And after a couple, like a month maybe, I started getting full requests. And I ended up with, I wrote it down because I went back through my emails. I keep all my emails. 14 full requests out of 20 queries that I sent out for this manuscript. And so I knew I was onto something, and ended up getting 2 R&Rs, which were great, within the same week. And they had very similar feedback. So I was like, okay, I think I need to take a look at this. And I took my time, took like 3 months to do the R&Rs, sent them back. Both agents offered, as well as a third agent. And I actually at that point had all those fulls out. So I had to let all those agents know and give them like a week to read it. And so I ended up with 3 offers and got to interview them and choose my agent. Just so happens that the agent that I went with was really the one that I kind of always wanted all along. So that was, that's how I ended up with my agent, Louise Fury at the Bent Agency.
That's awesome.
So Vanessa, are you going to do anything with that first book, or is that done?
It's funny because it's come full circle now. So my agent I pitched it to her, and she loves it. And it's a series, but I have a 2-book deal with Penguin. So I'll write 2 standalone books, and then they have an option for my 3rd book, which will be standalone. And then we're going to revisit my agent's very editorial, which is one of the reasons why I chose her. So, we did a couple rounds of revisions before I even subbed, which got it in tip-top shape. And so, we're going to go through it and review it and then sub it out when we can. So, yeah.
That's awesome. I love that. I'll go next. Let's see. I had been dabbling with like picture books for a little bit. And so I had queried a little bit there. And I kind of am glad I did it that way, because I kind of got over the like, oh my God, I'm going to send the email now, like kind of freaking out stuff. And so I did a little bit there, but nothing really happened with picture books. And I ended up writing, I've written like another YA contempt, but that will never see the light of day. I feel like that was my how to write a book practice book. And then I wrote Into the Tall, Tall Grass, and worked on it, revised. I found a couple critique partners that helped me, get it in good shape. And then I really just kind of delved into how to query. I don't know anyone in publishing. I'm a nurse. So like this whole publishing world, writing world was like sort of this secret pipe dream I had. And so everything I learned on the internet, and everything I learned basically for free. I couldn't really afford to like pay for anything or take classes or do anything like that. So, I mean, I would say there's like a wealth of knowledge on the internet for how to query, and how to kind of keep track of things without having to put a lot of money forward for that. And basically it was the old-fashioned querying is how I found my agent. I had thought about doing like some pitch events or different things, but the dates never seemed to line up quite with where I was, in my manuscripts. And so I think I had given myself a date of like, okay, starting January 1st, I honestly can't even remember which year, maybe 2018 or 2017, you're going to start, sending this out just, 5 to 8 at a time. I had like an Excel spreadsheet that was like super type A and obsessive with color coding and like what date and what, all of that. But it kind of just like helped me feel grounded to like be able to change the colors and do different things like that. And, I started sending stuff out at the beginning of January. My agent, I started getting some feedback and like some requests or partial requests. And then Christy Hunter at the Night Agency asked for, I can't remember if she asked for a full or a partial. I think she asked for a partial. And I gave her the partial, maybe 50 pages. And then she came back and asked for the full. And in that time, I had different partials and full requests. I think I had queried maybe 20 something agents by then, because for every like rejection I got, I sent another one. I actually had a little like also a thing to do is like have a little rejection jar. So for every single rejection I got, I put like $5 in. Just so then I was like, well, if you ever find an agent, then you can buy yourself something nice to celebrate. And I actually did that with submission as well, but I put like $10 in just because, submission's a little bit more. And she was like, I'd like to talk to you, on the phone. And I was like, oh my God, is this what I think it is? I don't know what to say. I don't know what to ask. And I just, once again, went on the internet and did a lot of like what to ask a potential agent. It's really hard, I think, with your first agent because you don't know the best way that you communicate yet because you're new to it. And so you don't know if you want somebody who's going to tell you every last detail. You don't know if you want someone to not tell you anything and just tell you when there's good news. And you don't really know if you want editorial or someone less editorial. And maybe that changes actually through your whole career. I knew I wanted someone editorial just because like writing is not something I like learned in school or, took a bunch of classes on. So I was like, I think I need someone to kind of help me with this kind of thing. And she was wonderful. She was really good about, giving me an option and a plan for what could be better. I ended up getting I think I got an R&R also from a different agent, was waiting to hear back. You have to kind of go back and tell all the agents that requested that you have an offer. And so that's like the most stressful 2 weeks ever because half the time nobody responds. So you're like, I don't know how much more like effort I should put into letting them know. But basically I had one R&R and the offer from my agent. And, I felt very confident with her vision for the book, the things that she liked about my writing, her vision for my, potential career in the future. This wasn't going to be just like a one book kind of thing for her. She wanted to see what else I could do. She asked me about other projects. And really the thing I really liked about her about her is that she is kind of willing to meet me wherever I want to be. So if I really want to know every last, nook and cranny detail of submission and all of that, she will send me the list. She will keep me posted. If I say, you know what, this is too much, I don't really want to know all this, just tell me if there's news, she'll do that as well. And she keeps track of that and remembers it. And so I think, you just have to really kind of find someone that works for you in the moment. It could change. So, Rebecca?
Yeah. Okay. I'm going to pick up on several threads, but in a lot of ways, my experience was similar. I queried 20 agents, and I just picked a number out of the blue, and I thought, okay, I'm gonna just pick 20, and I did little batches of 5 across, week and a half or something, like not spaced out very much. And I did try to research each one of them a little bit. I looked at favorite books and found like, who's the agent for this person and that person? Now, I did realize that famous people's agents are usually not accepting new people. So, but you can, and I suggest doing this, you can find interviews with these people. You can find statistics on how often they say yes or how many sales they have. Publishers Weekly is kind of an expensive thing, but you might have a friend who has a subscription or maybe several people like go in on it together. So you can actually see some of that statistical stuff. But I just made sure they were accepting the kind of book and the kind of genre I'm writing in, and read a few interviews so I could tweak the query letter, sent 20, and unlike Loriel and Vanessa, I got no fulls and nothing like just thank you, form rejections, we appreciate your interest. Your work is not quite a fit for, we didn't fall in love immediately. Good luck placing this elsewhere, except one. And that one became my agent. And so, you 19 no's is fine if you get one yes. So, and then she is editorial, and I appreciate that, but I didn't even know what that was. And we did have a read and review in there too, where she didn't offer to represent me immediately. I rewrote the book. It was really a pile of poems before it turned into a novel. And so she wanted to see if I could turn it into a novel before we got very far along. She said, if you want this to be a poetry book, that you don't even need an agent. You're just going to look at small presses, university presses. And I had already done that route with a book before, so I knew I did not want to do that this time. So I did turn it into a novel. And I'll also add that I have an MFA in creative writing, which you do not need. It's in poetry. I loved getting the MFA. I loved the attention to my work that it brought, a focus. I made a lot of good writer friends, but they did not talk about marketing. The professors did not push my name in front of their agents at all. In fact, they have a rule against it at this particular school. It was Bennington Writing Seminars. So they did not want to blurb my book. They can't, there's certain legal things and certain ethical things they ascribe to. So don't think that an MFA is sort of some big wide open door to publishing, because it really is a whole separate project. And when I came to querying, I just looked online, like Loriel was mentioning, to see how do I write a query letter? And I tried to do the hook, the book, and the cook, right? Like something exciting about the book and then about me. And, I'm not even an expert at query writing now because I only wrote that one. And so, but I only needed one yes. So if you get 19 no's in a row, don't worry about it, or 29 or 39. It can still happen. So.
Or 60.
Or 60. Wow.
Well, so I actually started, I am a nonfiction writer, a creative nonfiction writer, and I started taking classes at the Loft Literary Center here in Minneapolis, probably 15, 20 years ago. Little by little, started working on a memoir. So I spent 10 years writing and trying to publish a memoir. About every 2 years, I would go on query. My book was a finalist for a couple things. I got some grants with it. It felt like it was on the cusp. And yes, over 60 agents and contests and public small presses. Everybody, same thing, oh, your writing is really good, but I don't, I don't think we don't, blah, blah, blah. And so I finally just kind of lost hope. And I decided to turn a short story about a little boy into a novel. And I basically stole the soul of my memoir and put it into this book. And so the book that became What If a Fish started as sort of almost like a cathartic write. And I didn't really know what I was doing, but I just kept going. And then I applied to Pitch Wars on Twitter, and I did not get selected, but then there was one extra mentor who was allowed to choose 2 mentees like that hadn't gotten chosen, and so she chose mine. Thank goodness. So she helped me work up the pitch and work up the first. She actually helped me rewrite the book. I learned about Save the Cat, which was invaluable to finally learn about the rhythm and the forward momentum of book, which I had no idea because it's so much like that part of it is different than from memoir. And then Pitch Wars happened. It's so nerve-wracking because you see how the YA books are getting like hundreds of requests, and middle grade is like 10, 5, maybe some couple. So I did have some requests from Pitch Wars, and the agents who I sent it to, there was maybe 4 or 5 that kept it for a while. They didn't reject it right away. And while I was waiting to hear back, I was contacted by the University of Minnesota Press, an editor there, and he said, "Oh, because I'd written a story for an anthology there," and he said, "Oh, do you have? What are you working on? Do you have anything?" And I was like, "Well, I have a memoir, and I also happen to have this middle grade novel." And he said, "Send them to me." So I sent them both, and he got back to me and was like, "We want to publish both of these." And so then I had to go back to these agents who all had fulls and say, "I've got a publisher who wants to publish this book." And several of them got really mad at me for not doing it in the right order. But I hadn't planned on doing it out of order. So those agents were a definite no. They were so upset with me for not following their idea of how the industry works. And so I had a couple that I was interested in, and my agent, when I finally talked to her, I was like right away on the phone, like, "Yes, this is my agent." And she was willing to sell the book, to just do the deal for me. But then she convinced me that we could bring the book wider than a university press. And I kind of went back and forth trying to decide what to do, because I love my editor at the university press. But she agreed. So we decided to go wide. And so that was exciting. And she was just really supportive, like you guys have said. She's just like that, whatever you want to know, whatever, I definitely was like, after 10 years of rejections, I was like, I do not want to hear, do not tell me any bad news. I only want happy things. So it was my roundabout way of getting an agent. And so I was able, my first book was my memoir, came out much faster. And then, so my debut, middle grade, is What If a Fish. And we're going to segue into talking about our books finding homes. So that kind of my story was pretty kind of all on top of each other. We had a couple when the book went out on Sub, we had a couple possibilities. There was one editor I spoke with on the phone who I could tell right away, didn't get the vision of the book. There's a little bit of elements of magical realism in it, but it's really, really light-handed. And this editor wanted it to go more towards fantasy and more towards, more magic than magical realism. And, she was really nice, but I just that wasn't where my heart was for this book. And so when I finally talked to my editor, she had a lot of really similar experiences. She's Puerto Rican. She had just been to the island and had eaten mangoes, just like the character does in the book. And it was perfect timing for her to get my manuscript. So it's been really wonderful. And my book was actually her very first book ever, on her own. So I was her guinea pig. So that was exciting too. So we were new together, and then we got to have a pandemic debut together. How about Loriel? How was your book publishing?
Oh gosh. Okay. Let me go back. My agent, I think we did 8, around between 7 and 8, I think is what we ended up, or she ended up deciding who it would be. And she gave me the list, and I looked them over and, obsessively scoured anything I could find on the internet, tried to figure out what books they published. And it actually wasn't that easy. Some people were much easier to find than others, in terms of their internet footprint. And, it was, I want to say I feel like we went on Sub in June, at the beginning of summer, when they say don't go on Sub in the summer. And I was like, well, I guess we're going on Sub in the summer, because that's when I was done with, the revisions and everything that my agent and I worked on together. So I was a little anxious about that. And I think like within a couple weeks, we had gotten a few rejections. And then like by middle of summer, there was one R&R. And, but it was the issue with an R&R on submission is like, it's vague. So you get like these feedback, but they don't give you like every kind of feedback on what they exactly want you to fix it, because they haven't bought the book or signed the book, and they don't want you to like, I guess, make it better for somebody else to buy it, or I don't know. It's kind of this weird thing. So I remember just really trying to figure out how to do this R&R, and like, how was I going to answer all these vague questions that they had without like being able to speak to the editor about like some of the issues, or at least like bounce ideas off of them. So I just remember for like about 6 weeks kind of struggling to try to figure out, I do want to do this R&R. I just don't really know how to do it. And then in that time, this was like at the beginning of August, I actually had a dream. It was so weird. I had this dream, and it was the editor for McElderry Books taking the book to acquisitions and saying they wanted it. And this was like on a Tuesday or Wednesday, I had the dream, and I woke up, I was like, no way. Like, that's weird. Didn't really think much of it. And then by like, I think it was a Thursday or Friday, my agent's like, they're going to offer, they want your book. And I was like, what the heck? How did I dream that? Like, that was really weird. But I got to talk to her, to Karen Watchila with Marker K. McElderry Books. And she just instantly like got what I was trying to do with the book. I could see, it was just like our visions aligned. I still knew my book wasn't quite where I wanted it. I just didn't know how to get it there. And the stuff that she was kind of picking at and pulling at and talking about was exactly the stuff that needed to, shine in the book or change a little bit in the book. I just didn't know how to do that. And so with her vision kind of aligned with mine, I felt really good about it. I still think we had a couple more editors out. Christy, told them that we had an offer, and then they all pretty much were like, yeah, no, we don't want it. So, which was fine, because honestly, I don't know that I don't know what anyone else could have said to make me change my mind, because Karen was just like a spot on with everything that she had mentioned. So it was kind of like what Rebecca said, like, yeah, I had a bunch of no's, and I had one yes for my agent, and then a bunch of no's for submission, and then one yes. But it really did kind of like align perfectly with, I think, the two best people to help me bring this book to where it was. So I was very lucky. I did not have to wait a super long time on submission. I think we went on June 1st, and I think by mid-August to late August, I had sold it. And it was in the middle of summer, when they say it's the worst time to try to sell a book. So I really don't think, like, some of those advice things about don't try to sell a book in the summer, whatever. Maybe the holidays are actually kind of bad just because no one's in the office. But
my book also went on sub in the summer, and my agent specifically was like, well, it's a summer story, so it's going to make sense to read it in the summer. She's like, I want editors to read it while it's hot out. And
mine's hot too. So
yeah, yours is too.
There was something there. Yeah. I just think there's no rules, right?
Summer subs are lucky, I guess. Yeah, we were all summer subs. Well, 3 of us.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. That's cool.
See, there's no rules.
Nope.
Vanessa, do you want to talk about your sub experience?
Oh, sure. So I went on sub in the summer, but it was funny because Louise, my agent, she was like, we have to get it out there before all the editors are gone and to the Hamptons. Like, that has to happen. So that was like totally a thing, I guess. So I was like, okay, so we were doing this revision. So I was trying to like get going with it so that we could get it out there. She subbed it out in June. And she's like me. And that's one of the things that I found out when I interviewed her before I signed with her. One of the things that you should ask your agent is, what is their, how do they do submissions? I mean, do they just put 3 out there? Do they put 10 out there? What do they do? And for me, I wanted someone that would cast a wide net like I did, with agents. And that's exactly what she does. And then she sent me the list of everyone via email, and I wanted to know every stage. I'm not that person that doesn't want to know the rejections. So as hard as they are to hear. But so we subbed out, and we weren't getting any rejections, but we weren't getting anything. I mean, it was like we weren't hearing anything. So we were like, okay, are we too late? Is it too far into summer? And then it came back at me like a couple weeks later and said, I think it's the title, which is never anything you want to hear if you love your title, which I did. And I'm like, what do you mean it's my title? And she goes, it just doesn't say anything about what's inside the book. And I think we need that hook of a title. And so brainstorm the title and get back to me. So I literally sat down at the table and just spit out in about 15 minutes about 30 options for other titles. I mean, I was just like typing out words and sent it to her. And she was like, the turning point, that's it. That's what we're going to use. And so we resent all those submissions with the change of title. And that was in July. Now it was July. And we immediately got hits on it. And so someone offered a preempt like right away. And for those who don't know what a preempt is, that's a publisher basically puts money on the table to take your book off the table for everyone else. So, but at that point we had other publishers other editors out there who had said they were interested. So we didn't take the preempt, which is a little scary because sometimes you can get less than what the preempt was, depending on what happens. It is a gamble. But we were willing to gamble with that. And my book went to auction in August, which was super nerve-wracking because even if your book goes to auction, if you turn down a preempt, sometimes the auction won't give you more than what the preempt was. And so when we did like a 2-round auction where there were 2 rounds. So everyone kind of put their bids in and then the top 2 go to the next stage, which was all done in the same day. But before that, I got to actually interview all the editors who were going to be in the auction, which was really cool. And it helped me figure out who I clicked with. And I mean, I'm not a writer either. Like my career wasn't writing before this. I mean, so all this was so new to me. I mean, I'm a firefighter paramedic. I didn't write for a living before this. So I really didn't know how this all went until I was just knee deep in it. And I was just learning as I went. It was super overwhelming. So when I had to interview all those editors, I just had like my intergalactic command station with all my notes and like, you know, what all the questions that I wanted to ask. And we had them all lined up in a row. So it was like, you know, this one, then this one, then this one. I was just exhausted, but it was really cool. And I just really clicked with actually a couple of editors. So I was happy about that. And then when the auction closed, I ended up with Karen Smith, and she's super awesome and just love her. And I love the direction that she wants to take the book. And I'm happy that I get to work with her on another one after this. And yeah, so that's my story.
That is very cool. That's so exciting. So for me, my agent and we spent about 9 months in rewriting the book. And then it was about the end of July, so sort of summer, when she decided we're ready to go out with it. And I did not want to see all the rejections, but what she did was she would collate them in an email. So, and it took a while. It took till the spring, so it wasn't fast. She sent like in batches. And of course, kind of like we would be so lucky if group, and then like a little more realistic group. And one great thing about an agent, I mean, a capable agent is well connected and can send it right to the editor at the house that's going to be the most receptive, you know, in or the most into that kind of project. Or so Katie was real strategic, I think, about who she's sending to. And we had pretty long lists to start with. And, you know, so she would do these batches and she would send me these emails that said, oh, kind of a heartbreaker on this one, but lots of nice feedback. And I was like, ugh. And so one thing I learned from that submission process, after we went through a couple of batches and we had so many lovely emails that said, oh, I love this, kind of like Anika was talking about, oh, the character's amazing, the writing's amazing, but not quite, blah, blah. Okay. So what I started to see was a trend that the book was too quiet and that it needed a stronger plot. It needed another element that just wasn't there. And so in my own mind, as we got the rejections, however lovely they were, I was already thinking, okay, I need to rewrite this book. I need to put something important as I guess the character needs a very specific goal, not just a character arc, but a real physical, achievable thing that she's working toward. And so I kind of thought I might have to put that in before anyone would buy it, but I was wrong. Toward the end, maybe 7, 8 months into the submission process, we got a phone call with an editor, and she wanted me to, let's see, the place where the book ended, she wanted that to be the middle, and then she wanted me to write a whole new half of the book. And I thought, oh my goodness, I can hardly imagine doing that. But I was trying to figure out if maybe that was my only hope for this book or what. So I had a phone call with her. And then right after that, the editor at Chronicle expressed interest. And so I had a phone call with her. And she is fantastic and clicked right away, she and she said, I think the book is pretty much there. You just need to bring out this and maybe tease out that and so on. So I could tell that with her, I was going to rewrite the existing book and not like start with a draft of a whole half of a book. So, so we went with her, but I already knew that I would be rewriting with this new element in mind that I was already thinking about. And indeed, I did do a couple rounds with her after the book sold and put that element in. And it's a much stronger book. And I love working with an agent. I'm sorry, with an editor. It may seem painful to folks, but it actually is amazing to work with someone who is giving your book the kind of deep read that you give it. And at least for me, this is Taylor at Chronicle. Taylor will write almost like a research paper on my book before the edit letter is like 13 pages long and single spaced. Not everyone does that much, but it was amazing to see how well she knew the characters, how well she knew the themes, and she could talk with me about little details. And we really worked well together. And now I kind of wonder, how would I write a book without her feedback and with that? I mean, of course I could do that, but I wouldn't want to work on a book without someone like that. This smart, well-read person, sensitive-hearted person giving feedback. She's just become very close to me and to my heart. So I'm excited that I have this relationship with her. And the second book was similar. And I hope I get to write a third book with her for Chronicle. We will see.
There's a lot of finger crossing in this.
Yeah.
There.
Yeah.
Yep.
But my editor actually has a lot of tattoos, and she actually got a jellyfish tattoo in honor of because it was her first book, so it was also it wasn't just like for me, but it was. But when I saw that, I was like, I saw it on Instagram. I was like, oh my gosh,
That's really cool.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Our next two questions are maybe the same question. I don't know. What you wish you knew before you started, and any advice you have. I don't know if those are kind of the same question.
Right. Something comes to mind. The thing I wish I had known is how much time this all takes. Mm-hmm. Like, it is months before you hear back from things. It takes, and then even once it's going to be published, you think, oh, great. When's it coming out? Oh, 2 years from now. Oh my goodness. The cover takes months, years even. It's just so long. And then once you get instructions about something, oh, well, then they want you to turn it around in like 2 weeks, But everything takes so long. So be writing. That's also my advice. Realize it takes long. So you might as well be writing on the next project or a different project or, yeah. So that's one thing I wish I had known.
Yeah.
That's a big one, I think. Hurry up and wait, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Being patient. Yeah. Yep.
I'm trying to think what I knew. I guess like just in terms of querying, like when you're going out for that first time, I stressed so much about and like every agent has their own things that they want sent, whether it's like 5 pages or 10 pages or 1 page or no page, and the query and all of that. And then like you're writing the query letters, over and over, and you're stressing, I don't have anything for my bio. I don't have anything, right? So you're just like, you just kind of micro stress over a lot of that stuff. And really, like, if you have a good hook and you have like the gist of, what the book's about, they will forgive those errors or those things that you don't have much to say or, whatever. And you really, like, if you focus on like getting their attention in like a professional way, that really just does most of the work for you. And it's okay if you don't have much in your bio. I think I just put like, I'm a nurse and I like to read. And, it was like, I didn't have anything else, really much else that I thought was worthy of saying. And, that I think was really something I stressed about that I didn't need to stress about as much. And then I would say my other thing is like, definitely rewarding yourself for trying. So my goal was to get 100 rejections in a year. Hold on, my daughter just came in. You go find daddy. Sorry. She just unlocked the door. So like my goal was 100 rejections in a year. I didn't have to get there, thankfully, but like I was prepared to like meet that goal, and then rewarding myself for every single rejection. So even if it's just small, like, okay, you reward yourself for putting yourself out there. So with querying and with submission, it just kind of helps take the sting away a little bit. And then, after, I can't remember what I bought, but I bought something good. It was like tasty, I'm sure, like dinner out or wine or something like that. But I just think it's good because there's a lot of rejection. It's a lot of waiting, and it gets kind of hard at times. And so you need to have something. It's really hard to wait for a long time and then get rejected. And you're like, oh my God, I waited 6 months for that. Like, come on. So just find ways to celebrate what you're doing, because it does take a lot of courage to do that, is what I would say.
When I first started submitting for literary journals, when not even the book, I decided I would take myself out and go out for dinner every time I got a rejection. I was like, oh my God, I'm going to get fat and go broke. I got to find something different. Because if you're actually sending out like as much as you need to send out to get published, so you want to pick like $5. That's a good, like, a whole dinner out. No, probably not.
No. When you sell it, you go to dinner, right?
Right, exactly. I don't calibrate my reward.
Yeah, I think I didn't realize how much time it seems like such an obvious thing, but it's really not, because it's super easy to get overwhelmed with feeling like you have to be on every social media platform. I will say that is super overwhelming. Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, Clubhouse, Slack. I mean, all this stuff, it can be, for someone like me who isn't on social media a whole bunch, it can be overwhelming, and you might feel like you're falling behind or you have to be on it to be visible. But the advice that I've received is just pick 1 or 2 platforms that you really connect with and concentrate on those, and don't try to spread yourself too thin. Mm-hmm. I wish I would have put less weight into like pitching events, because when I was first pitching my first book, I went to all these conferences and, pitched face to face. And I mean, really, I got way further just writing a good query letter and with a hook in it. And I got way more requests that way. And pitching events can be they can just have so much anxiety, and the agents are exhausted because they're just sitting there all day long. And I actually feel sorry for them. And it's like, oh,
Yes.
I don't want to sit there all day and listen to that. But, you know, I felt like, oh, I get to meet them face to face. And I don't know why, I just thought that that was the way. But once I started querying actually and got better at it, yeah, that was really helpful. And then just like, I guess like I was holding this book up before we started, before and after the book deal. This is super helpful to me now because it just kind of tells me what to expect in a humorous way. She's super funny. She's a really humorous writer. I think joining a writer's group is some of the advice that I would throw out there, because this is such a lonely profession. I mean, no one can write the book but you, and it's not like you can sit next to, well, you can. I mean, we have write-ins, we used to before COVID, where we would meet at a coffee shop, a bunch of writers, and we would just all sit there and write at the same time and do sprints or something, like decide we're just going to write for 20 minutes or whatever. But it's so important to have friends that are in this business as well, that you can bounce things off of, that totally understand what you're going through and all the rejection and stuff. And so my writers group has been super invaluable. And I went to a bunch of conferences in the past, and I have some lifelong friends that I met at conferences, and we still support each other, even though we don't see each other very often. And then, more advice, just have all your stuff. I bought like an old school daily planner to put all my writer stuff in so that it doesn't get messed up with my digital, my online calendar, because I was missing things, and I'm very visual, as you can see behind me. So like if I, write it all out, that helps. I have a notebook with little tabs so that I can write character bios and stuff. And then I have another one that I carry around in my purse for ideas. And then I have lots of Post-it notes. And I mean, just be prepared and set yourself up for success if you're that kind of person. But yeah.
And I will echo your social media thing. It's not so much that you must be producing all the time. But I think my agent, I was not on Twitter at all when my agent first knew me. And that was one of the first things she said, is that, okay, you have an assignment. I want you to get on Twitter. And it took me a while to even figure out what I would do on Twitter. But I started realizing, oh, there's a middle grade book chat every Monday night. I'm writing middle grade. I guess I should, learn what educators and librarians are saying about middle grade. And I started following authors I admire, and, it became more organic as I went along. But the one thing I did have before all of that was a website. And it looked like a poet's website because I was a poet. And I had like 40 poems published in little journals and literary magazines and stuff. But immediately my agent said, you need to update this. You're now a novelist. And I was like, novelist? Who's a novelist? Yes. I'm a novelist. Okay. So just know that you're querying, and that those people can Google you, so just make sure there's something to find. It probably would have been smart if I had updated my website before I queried, but my agent was actually very helpful with like, how can I be strategic with what I'm doing online? And she gave me good advice in that area. But it doesn't hurt to have a website, even as you're in the query process.
Yeah. I echo all of your lessons. One of the things that I found, so the opposite of the being on social media, is actually pre-pandemic is being present in your community, whether that's going to conferences, or it might just be, agreeing to do a reading or to host, not even do a reading, just be there. When I was querying and really getting down about my memoir, there was a year where I decided this year I'm going to say yes to everything, like everything that people have available or they want me to do, whether it pays or not. I'm going to do everything that gets offered to me. And I think that was one of the ways that my editor at the University Press, he lives, he's local, and he heard about me from somebody else who heard about me from someone else, because I was starting to build my network of people. So I judged grants, I judged contests, I, everything, not lots of non-paid stuff. I, volunteered to be like stand by the door at a conference where you're not in it, you're just a body. And so I'm just a really big proponent of being part of the literary community, whether that's your local, like actual physical community or just broader community online, like Musas. So just being involved. And then it's not just networking, it's making friends, like Vanessa said. It also gives you ideas, and like you have to live life in order to write the next book, right? So that's always helpful too, or just even like driving somewhere. Remember that? Oh, you guys drive. Some of you drive places. I don't go anywhere. Just that, like getting out of the house and having seen things that will inspire you to write.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a great way to, be networking in your own area. It's great. Those are the people who will come to your book launch if you get one.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and go to other authors' things and cheerlead for other authors. That's so appreciated.
Mm-hmm.
You can be writing reviews on Goodreads or on Amazon, and that's a real gift to the authors. It's the number of reviews matters. It affects where the book shows up in the listing, and so these are ways you can like support authors and kind of connect with authors you would like to know, because then you can like tweet about, hey, I wrote a review, but only good ones. Don't tell the author.
Yeah.
If it's negative. No. That's
exactly.
Yeah.
That's really most of what I do on Twitter, because I'm not really good on Twitter. But I retweet other book launches and things like that to support other authors, because I think that's really important, and that's kind of my jam on Twitter. It's pretty much it for me.
I don't know how many people we have live actually watching, but if there are any questions, we would love to open it up. Otherwise, if any of you have any other thoughts or nuggets of wisdom or a funny story, we'll take those too. Yeah, we didn't plan this part.
I know, it's so unplanned.
Well, okay, then I will say, what is everyone working on right now, or what is the next thing that's going to happen in your writing life?
Copy edits.
Fun.
Yeah, I'm waiting for an authenticity read to come back, feedback, and then my copy edits and line edits are going to be an all one thing, because my editor said that she doesn't really have much for line edits. I'm a really slow writer. And so I'm really picky I really think about every sentence that I put down, and once it's there, it's really hard for me to get rid of it too. I like cling to my words. And so because of that, I think I submit pretty clean drafts as far as line edits and stuff like that, and copy edits. But I'm scared for copy edits because I've heard nightmare stories about copy edits.
I liked copy edits because they were like easy things to fix, like a comma and adjust and that and a period. And
I just don't want her to tell me that I use like the word seams like 68 times in the entire
manuscript. They will. And then you go, God, what's another word for seams? Or you're like, do I even know what toward and towards is? Like, I still don't know.
I should have worn I have this t-shirt that says, actually, I can on it. And one of my readers sent it to me in the mail because she was like, you really like the word actually. And this is like the first draft. And I said, really? And she goes, yeah, it comes up a lot. And so I did that whole word search thing, where you can figure out how many times the word comes up. And it was 68 times in my manuscript. 68 times I said actually. And you know what? If you take actually out, it doesn't really change the meaning of the sentence.
I know. I actually love copy edits too, because yes, they're small things. It's not like, hey, you need a climax or something.
Right.
It's like, no, just small things. But also they made me aware. And for me, I had copy edits and then proofreading. So in one of those two times, it made me aware of like all the brand names and how you have to capitalize a word like dumpster, which is like, wait a minute, isn't a dumpster? But no, it's like Kleenex.
Yeah, and
That's a
Band-Aid.
brand
Oh.
name. So you must capitalize dumpster.
I'm a copy editor also. It was one of the things I did before, while I was hoping to publish a book. I got certified as a copy editor, so mine should be really clean. But I love copy edits. It's so fun. It's all the grammar. But my copy editor complained about some unrealistic thing happening in the book, and I was like, that's because it's magic, magical realism. And so my editor said, in this house we set for magic.
Yeah.
That means that we like keep it. Yeah.
Wow.
I like setting. It feels very powerful.
Oh, it does.
Yeah.
We have some questions about how to find an agent, which I think we kind of talked a little bit about, kind of the randomness of that. And then also questions about those of us who don't have a background in writing, how did we learn about writing middle grade and why? And I think none of us are officially have backgrounds in Kid Lit. Right?
No.
I think, well, I would say like for finding agents, there's one thing that I did find super helpful was the hashtag MSWL on Twitter, manuscript wish list. And then there's another, I think there's a website called Manuscript Wish List.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And you can look up agents, see what they represent, what things they're interested in. I think I found Christy, my agent, I think I found her through a hashtag MSWL. And it was basically, she was looking for like magical middle grade type books. And then I looked at like some of other, some things, her favorite books. And I was like, oh yeah, this might be a good fit. So that's a good way to kind of just kind of look and see what, who might interest you. The other thing, like Rebecca had said, was find your favorite middle grade books or your favorite young adult books and see who represents those authors. You can find them in the acknowledgments usually. And that's also a way to kind of get into Kid Lit is read tons of the books like in the genre that you want to write. It kind of gives you an idea of like more modern ways that the books, are being published now versus like maybe when you were a kid. And it just kind of gives you that middle grade voice of where things are at in publishing right now.
Yeah. Poets and Writers has a database that you can search and you can put the genre, fantasy, horror, middle grade, whatever, and then it'll come up with agents. So that's another resource.
Yeah. Manuscript wish list is great. And I think it's so important to research the agents that you're going to query because, they don't want to waste their time with a manuscript that they don't rep, it's just, it immediately says that you haven't done your research. Mm-hmm. And it does help if you, say something a little bit personal to them in the query letter. It shouldn't just be a boilerplate query letter with their name on top of it. It should be like, because you are searching for stories about or whatever, or I know you rep so-and-so and that book really spoke to me. And I think that this one will too, or, something that says that you've actually done your research and haven't just made a list and, put out a bunch of queries to anybody. But manuscript wish list really helped a lot. And actually on Twitter, there's so many events on Twitter where agents are, looking for certain things. So if you just keep your eye out on that, like DV Pit and all those types of events.
Query Tracker was mentioned before, but they have a
Tracker
listing as well. Mm-hmm.
Query Tracker can actually drive you mad because if you're obsessive like me with it, like when I was querying, and if you can look on all those stats that somebody talked about earlier, where you can actually see they have a graph that will tell you how long the agent takes on average to reject someone or get back to someone or ask for a full manuscript. So, and then people type in, they're like, oh my God, I haven't heard back in 2 weeks. And she usually responds within the first 48 hours so I might as well just cross her off. But you can sort of get an idea of how they operate. Some people take, weeks and weeks and weeks, but you can drive yourself crazy with Query Tracker, but it is a good resource. I used it.
Yeah, and when you see what the agent does from the other side of the desk, you can see why agents take so long to respond. They have so much work that they're doing, taking care of their current clients, and especially if they're an editorial agent, then they're also reading their current clients' manuscripts, and they're editing, and they're trying to track down 8 editors who haven't responded in 2 weeks, and having meetings, and having phone calls. I mean, the contracts, like, no wonder they take so long to get back to authors. So I think it's important that it has no bearing on your quality of your story or whether you're going to get published or not. It's just kind of the basics of like time and life.
And look at the agency website. Actually look at the website and read about what type of agency they are. I really wanted a collaborative agency where the agents, bounce things off of each other and work together. And that was important to me because it really does feel like a family. So that's one thing. And just being, present in your writing community. I mean, my critique partner, I have 2 main critique partners, and we always exchange work. And my agent is one of my critique partners' agents. And she signed about a year before me. And then she just happened to be talking about my book to her agent. And her agent was like, have her send that to me like right now. And so I did. And she was already on my list of agents. And I knew how she worked because my critique partner had already gone through the whole process with her. And so, like, had I not had that critique partner and built those relationships up, then, so it all worked out in a really cool way.
Another cool thing with the networking that can happen is that eventually you might hopefully need someone to blurb your book. And if you've been connecting with authors online and you have authors in your community who, you've been to their readings or you've been to their events, then they're going to be happy to write that blurb and help out a new person because they were that new person not very long ago. So that's another good thing about contributing to like the writing community.
Yeah. So we're at our hour. So I just dropped in the chat just the link for Las Musas, where many webinars are archived there, so you can see some of the other pieces of advice and the other stories from the other Musas. There's also a podcast that is just getting off the ground. I don't know how, there may be like 6 episodes, I think, right now. So you can also hear more from a lot of different authors about different topics and how we're about our books and our paths to publication.
Yes.
Thank you so much to everyone who came.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye.
Sorry about my kiddo.
Bye, guys.